Thank you for joining us.
Hey, John, good to see you again. How are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you. As you know, I'm John Avlon, Chairman of Citizens Union, uh,
Yes,
and we've got a great group
congratulations.
of
I saw you just became chairman.
back in December. Thank you. I appreciate
Yes.
that. And we've got a lot of great board members here for our organization, members of the local candidates committee. I want to thank you for taking the time and for stepping up to run.
I
Obviously,
accept your condolences.
but as you know, Citizens Union has been fighting for reform in New York for well over a century. And our commitment is to fair and open elections, honest and accountable government, and ensuring we have a educated and engaged civic public. The focus I want to, and people on this call have served in government. They're going to have a lot of specific questions. We'd ask you to try to keep the questions to 2 to 3 minutes because we've got a lot we want to get through with you and your colleagues. You know, this is being recorded. But the top line question is this: why are you the best candidate to bring reform to City Hall as mayor?
Well, the main reason I'd say I entered the race is because I think I completely agree with you. I've reviewed your website and think we don't really have a democracy in this city. The system is rigged such that it's a low turnout off-season election, and I don't need to explain to you all. You're the experts. And one of the things I would love to join you in the fight for is changing this. But in the meantime, last election, 26% of registered Democrats voted. In the eighth round of ranked choice voting, Eric Adams won with 404,000 votes and effectively won in winning the primary, becomes mayor. So 5% of New Yorkers elected our mayor. So our elected leaders are beholden to a handful of special interest groups that then they owe their job to, they owe their political future to. And I don't think you can really reform that system when you have these incentives in place. You need an outsider. You need someone who doesn't really need the job and isn't angling for higher office. And so when I looked at the field, certainly when I decided to join last November, I didn't see any outsiders who could be independent and really reform oriented, who had a business and management background, who were ethically squeaky clean, as I looked across the field. So I said, New York voters deserve a choice, and I want to be a powerful voice for win or lose, a powerful voice for these issues. And hopefully, knock on wood, I'm getting $2 million in matching money on Monday. And can in the last 7 weeks minus a day of the race, I guess, until June 24th, go out there, get my name and ideas out there.
And I just want to push you. Obviously, we know from your questionnaire that you support two of our great priorities: open primaries, as you alluded to, making even your elections. Are there any other specific reform policies that you would prioritize that you think could help clean up City Hall and make our governance more effective?
Um, Yes, I would. I think, per your questionnaire, I want to highlight a couple things. Limiting bundling for people basically evading the donation limits that way. I would certainly look into whether there's anything that can be done at the local or state level to undo Citizens United. Already three of the other folks in the race in the Democratic primary have independent expenditures, which is all a wink, wink, nod, nod. We know so that I think we do better than most states, but there's a terrible corrupting influence of money still here. Um, and I will. I mean, some of this isn't structural, but just having welcoming the free press, and I want to give awards to investigative journalists that are uncovering ways in which the city is not running well, or where there's corruption or malfeasance. I'm a writer, like you, I guess, a writer and sort of journalist over 25 years. And then appointing someone very strong to be head of the Department of Investigations, and not firing them like de Blasio did when they uncover things that make me uncomfortable.
That's a good note. David Wang is that chairman of our local candidates committee. Is going to ask the next question.
Hope you will, Mr. Tilson. So City Hall has seen a surge in investigations, indictments, resignations related to ethical misconduct. Levels not seen, maybe from, since Jimmy Walker or whatnot. In your view, what is the biggest weakness in city government that has allowed this to happen, to fester? What specific policies would you implement to combat corruption and ensure that your administration remains ethical and transparent?
Well, I think a fish rots from the head, and um, but for 7,200 votes, we could have had Catherine Garcia as our mayor, and I don't think we would be seeing anything like what we're seeing now. I think so. I think a lot of it has to do with the nature of the individual. And we sort of all knew, this isn't new just since Mayor Adams entered the mayor's office, but I guess we were all hoping, but that he would somehow govern as mayor differently and step up to that, and didn't. The mayor, we have a strong mayoral system, and maybe this is one area I sort of gathered from your questionnaire where we might disagree. I'm actually generally in favor of a strong mayor system, even when I disagree with the mayor and who appoints cronies and corrupt folks. I think structurally, I've particularly seen it in the school system. I think it's very important to have mayoral control. That said, the downside to this, I recognize the system can go awry if you have a corrupt mayor who appoints cronies and is on the take himself. So I reviewed your website, your press releases, and they very much echo my own in terms of the Trump administration doing a corrupt, Mayor Adams doing a corrupt bargain with the Trump administration. And I would seek as mayor, to the 155 or so people that I would appoint as mayor, the very first criteria would be ethically squeaky clean, and coming as an outsider. I don't have lots of political favors to repay, and if in the honestly outside chance at this point that an outsider like me is elected, I'm not going to owe anything to anybody. And so a candidate like me, I think, can bypass the structural undemocratic system that we have right now.
Thank you. Ben.
Juanita, you're up.
Hi, Mr. Tilson. As you know, the city relies heavily on nonprofit organizations to perform essential city services, but has done a very poor job paying them on time. In fact, we've seen many of them close their doors over the last few years. How would your administration assure that nonprofit organizations are paid on time? What specific policy changes or reforms would you make?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I've been hearing this again and again, and it's so important, not just nonprofits, but any vendors across the board, for-profit and nonprofit, the city does business with. The city is notorious for not paying its bills on times, even when they're not disputing the charge. And what that means is that smaller vendors, but also high quality vendors that can do business with anybody else, don't even show up to bid for RFPs. So that's something you don't even see. But the city is then selecting among for-profits and nonprofits that can't find business with anybody else, and or only the largest, which may be good or bad. But it stifles innovation and new entrants for sure. I really don't understand it. Like, just paying your bills on time in a reasonably timely fashion is just basic management 101. And so, look, I'm a business person. I graduated from business school 31 years ago. I built a half dozen small businesses, and I know bad management when I see it. And so, I don't know what more to say other than, I'm going to make sure the city pays its bills on time.
do you think it's technology that needs to be updated? Do you think it's the agency efficiency? Because, you know, there's a whole process for OMB to get involved. Just curious if you know, have an opinion on what specific steps or agencies would need to be streamlined.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't claim to be an expert on accounts payable, you know, of one of the largest bureaucracies in the world, but I know that other bureaucracies do it, and I'll appoint the people, the right people. I do think, and one of the things I do hear is, you know, back in the old days, I just saw the movie Drop Dead City, which I highly recommend, the documentary about New York coming within an hour of going bankrupt in 1975. And back then, the city, you know, there was sort of blatant, open corruption and bags of cash and so forth. And I think there's less of that today. More the corruption today is just being beholden to special interests and you know, make work jobs and so forth. But I do think some of the delays in payments is almost like excessive bureaucracy to make sure that there's no corruption going on. You got to strike the right balance there.
Thank you.
Lolita?
Yes. So, hello, Mr. Tilson. How you doing?
Hi, everybody, please call me Whitney.
Okay, Whitney. So city government has suffered from major staffing problems for a number of years, particularly recently. And many of the most highly skilled officials, not just commissioners, but people who actually have the trains run on time, as it were, and the policy experts have left the current administration. What would you specifically do to hire and retain quality public servants, both obviously bringing people in, but also there's people that you want to keep over mayoral transitions as well. What do you have any specific plans around that?
Yes, I think you know, generally speaking, I'll probably want to keep maybe my rough estimate might be a quarter to a third of the existing folks. I think Jessica Tisch, I've been quite public, I think is doing a great job since she came in right about the time I declared my candidacy, actually last November. So try and keep the best people. I think one setting, sort of being a fresh outsider, we're going to do things differently. You know, building morale. Morale is horrible up and down city government from everybody I talk to, thanks to the disastrous and corrupt leadership of Mayor Adams. So I think that's a big part of it. And I intend to cast a very wide net to bring talented people in. But beyond keeping the best people, promoting from within, people who sort of know the system, but also, you know, I want to find out who's handling homelessness for Houston, which has cut its homeless population by 60% in the last 10 years. And not only figure out what they're doing, but who's behind it, and you know, call them up and say, hey, come do it on the biggest stage in the world here. And lastly, I want to draw from private sector folks. I thought Mayor Bloomberg did an excellent job of bringing in talent from the business community that only a business person like him could, and that I'd try to do as well.
Thank you.
Eleanor? Eleanor, you're muted if you're speaking.
Sorry, very, very sorry. I just said hello. That was all. That's
Hi.
nice to see you. So, so if you were mayor, how would you deal with the Trump administration? This is a sanctuary city, as you know. So, you know, there are areas like law enforcement, obviously immigration, as I just said, and Medicaid, certainly transportation, just
Yeah,
the range,
infrastructure in general.
education. They've got their hands in everything. How would you deal with the Trump administration?
Yeah, as pragmatically as possible while bending the knee to no one. You know, I will admit, since the day he came down that escalator almost exactly 10 years ago, I recognized the danger he posed and have fought tooth and nail against him, to warn people against him, and all 3 elections have gotten, deeply involved to stop him. That said, I will lead with my head, not my heart. My job is to serve the people of New York. And, I saw someone like Gretchen Whitmer get a lot of flack for standing on stage with him when he came to Michigan, but, I thought she explained it well. She's like, we have a almost $1 billion contribution to our economy, a National Guard base here, that I need to advocate for. And, needlessly going out of my way to trigger a volatile man-child isn't a very good strategy to help the people of Michigan. And so
How do you think Adams is done?
yeah, I think he struck a corrupt bargain to stay out of jail. And that's why I called for Hochul to remove him. And at least Judge Ho did the right thing in removing the sword of Damocles that the Trump administration had hanging over him. But I still think he's conflicted and by and large doing the bidding of the Trump administration. And so I would certainly not do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, I will I'll be a little provocative here in saying I would not there are limited areas where in the case of I think the city went too far in not cooperating with the federal government even before Trump under the Biden administration when it came to sanctuary cities ended up protecting criminals and people were committing mayhem in this city. So the problem is I thought it was a mistake to close the ICE office on Rikers Island back in 2015, I believe it was, because that is an area, if someone is arrested, even before conviction, they deserve due process, but that can be done at the federal level. It doesn't have to be on our dime. The problem is I would not reopen the ICE office under the Trump administration because they've proven to be so lawless. But theoretically, I think it was a mistake. The city council went too far in 2014 and 2018 in passing enhanced sanctuary city that cut off almost all cooperation, like 96% of computer communication between the feds and local authorities. And keep in mind, this was under the Biden administration mostly, that precluded that kind of cooperation. And if somebody is on the terrorist watch list, is wanted for murder or other serious crimes in other countries, I want local law enforcement to know about that. I want the computer systems talking to each other. The problem is I would not bring it back under Trump because of the behavior they've displayed.
Thank you.
Ken Seplow?
Ken, you're also on mute.
He's muted. All right, let's go to another question while Ken.
Okay, let's Ken, while you unmute, why don't we move to David Browner?
Yeah. I don't think I'm muted. Please confirm.
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead, David.
Okay. You mentioned in your questionnaire that you opposed removing the mayor's power to bump questions off the ballot on the rationale so voters can choose from an array of different charter revision proposals. I'm not sure how you reconcile those two propositions, because it would seem that giving the mayor the authority to override and bump a city council proposal and replace it with his own would reduce rather than increase the array of charter proposals available to the voters. So I would like to hear a little bit more as to whether we accurately understood your answer, you accurately understood our question, and if both of those are true, how do you reconcile those propositions?
It's funny, as I was preparing for this call, I looked at that and I said, oh, I misunderstood the question. So I answered it. I thought you were asking the inverse. There's a simple explanation for that. And I agree with you on that.
Okay. That made for very short question and answer then.
Just to be sure, you agree with us on that, the mayor should not be able to bump questions off the ballot?
Correct.
Thank you. And just a quick follow-up, since we now have time, the city council has established its own charter revision commission, which you might know of, and the the charter commission that the mayor has established has essentially bumped it off the ballot. That is supposed to be on the ballot next year. If you are elected mayor, will you do the same as Mayor Adams and kind of bump that question off the ballot or establish your own charter revision, or will you let that process play out?
Just so I'm clear, forgive my ignorance here. I saw, for example, your press release applauding the Charter Revision Commission for recommending not ranked choice voting, but moving voting to election years and having an open primary with top two going to the general. Was that the mayoral or the city council charter revision commission? When does that become before voters?
That was the mayoral, and it's confusing for everyone. Unfortunately, we have two parallel charter revision commissions. The mayoral one will be on the ballot this year, and that they have proposed the election reform as well as housing reforms and land use reforms and other reforms. And then a separate commission is working on other proposals that, if everything plays out as it should, will be on the ballot next year. Although we do not know what those proposals will be like.
And that's the city council's charter revision commission for next year.
Correct.
And can we do both? Can we approve the mayor's this year and the city council's next year?
That is what will happen unless the next mayor will do exactly what Mayor Adams has done, and that is going to establish a new charter revision commission to bump those questions off the ballot and forever and ever and ever.
Oh. Forgive me for not knowing. I'm probably in the 99.9% of people who didn't understand that inside baseball. No, I'm not going to do what Mayor Adams did. I like what I've seen with the current Charter Commission, and join you in applauding it. And I'm sure there's lots more work to do next year, and I wouldn't kill it.
Thank you. Ken, do you want to?
Forgive my fumble before. You have extensive experience as an investor, a political donor, and an advocate, but you were never part of government or managed an organization the size of New York City.
Yeah.
What makes you well suited for being the boss of over 300,000 public employees?
Yeah. Your statement is correct. I've run a half dozen small businesses and my charitable work on a dozen different organizations, some more substantial in size, KIPP charter schools, Teach for America, but nothing the size of New York. So you are correct about that. I am upfront and recognize my own inexperience in managing mega organizations. My investing career, I'm a value investor in sort of the Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger mold, generally looking at big companies whose stocks are way down because they've been poorly managed and need to be turned around in almost all cases. So I've studied hundreds and hundreds of successful and unsuccessful turnarounds. And I know that you need an outsider generally to come in with a fresh approach and a fresh team. And so I have experience, not directly managerially, but, for 30 plus years. My background is a business person. And the key, though, is I understand the most important hires I will have will be managerial types around me, and many from within the system who can help me manage it. I am more of an idea and policy person. And throughout my career, I've hired the right people around me to handle the managerial duties that aren't my strength.
Thank you.
Okay.
Al?
Should I jump in?
Yeah, please do.
Obviously you've seen the conflicts between the mayor and the city council over the last few years. You know, it maybe one could argue worse than normally seen. I think you might have answered this one before, but do you believe the current balance of power between the mayor and the council is appropriate? And if not, how would you adjust it? And second, if you're elected, how will you build a constructive relationship with the council and the next speaker?
Yeah. I think I believe in the strong mayoral system, and I think the balance is about right with the city council. Where I more have where I think the balance is skewed is New York City is too beholden to Albany. And I got, you know, I understand the history of this, and it actually goes back to, you know, 1970s when there was a strong state and a rich state and a bankrupt city, and now things are reversed. New York City is 70% of New York State's GDP, but all the strings that Albany attached to its bailout, you know, are still today. But so I'm going to even broaden your question is to get anything done in this city in so many areas requires the legislative approval and the governor's signature. That's actually, if I could push one button to get anything I wanted done, or the top 10 things or 5 things on my agenda done, and I could push a button and get it through Albany or get it through the city council, I'd pick Albany. Because I think that's more of a barrier. So, but the answer, but it is what it is. I don't think there are going to be massive structural changes. And so any mayor to be effective is going to have to be a good politician. If there's one critique of not very many I'd make of Mayor Bloomberg is I don't think he could be bothered with going up to Albany very much. That impaired some of his change agenda. So I'll be spending plenty of time trying to make friends and woo people. But, you know, also, you know, I understand the way the political game is. It doesn't come naturally to me to, you know, be the bad guy and play hardball politics. And so I will be hiring people who have that kind of political savvy. You know, I much prefer a honey rather than vinegar approach, as you can probably tell by my personality. But you got to be a good politician to get things done.
Thank you.
Bob Holman, do you want to lead us to the last question? The path to victory question? You're muted as well, Bob.
Good evening.
Hi, Bob.
So we talked about your background, and as an investor, as a private, you know, private business guy. And the question I think many of us have is, what do you see as your path to victory? Which basically focuses on how are you thinking of campaigning? What kind of endorsements you might be able to get? How are you approaching campaigning and getting enough votes to become mayor?
Yeah. Right now, I knew when I entered the race that it was a narrow path. I had just seen Daniel Lurie, a 47-year-old political neophyte, get elected in San Francisco. So I thought, look, if there's any time that an outsider who doesn't have 73 million of his own money to drop, buying name recognition as Mike Bloomberg was able to do, that in a rigged off-season, low turnout Democratic you know, closed primary, that it was going to be a narrow path. And then I knew if Cuomo entered the race, it would become a narrow path for everybody else, just his name recognition. So my path to victory is obviously narrower now than it was with only 7 weeks to go, than it was with 7 months to go. And with Cuomo in the race, polling quite well. He hasn't faltered yet, at least according to the polls. So we're all aware of his baggage and you know, so my path to victory and any of the other candidates' path to victory, frankly, involves Cuomo faltering in some way, which I don't think is impossible, you know, given his long history. So
But
if he does falter, I would argue I'm the only genuine independent centrist in the race, and basically the rest of the field is people quite far to the left, Mamdani furthest to the left, and the only one sort of, you know, not trying to tack to the center. All the rest of the candidates have sort of seen the political wind shift and are scrambling to the center and hoping we'll forget their earlier defund the police votes and that kind of thing, right? So at this point, I'm quite realistic that a number of things have to break my way to win. But I got, you know, it's like what Charlie Munger said about the key to a successful marriage: low expectations going in. So I got into the race knowing I was never going to be a favorite and things would have to break my way. But that I thought it was important that a business person talking about growth and prosperity and innovation and growing our tax base by growing our economy rather than growing our raising tax rates. That was important. I've been a longtime advocate for charter schools and education reform, and you know, that's an issue nobody's talking about that I plan to use a good chunk of that $2 million I'm hopefully getting on Monday to amplify that message. And so I figured if when I got into the race and today, that even if I don't win, it's important that voters have a choice of a real outsider, and gives me a platform to articulate and ideas that I care a lot about.
just to drill down just a second for that though, do you have a campaign plan, or do you have somebody that you're thinking of hiring to develop a campaign plan?
I've got a dozen people on my team, you know, and advisors as well. You know, ranging from my field team out there passing out flyers, and I'm out with them a lot at subway stops and so forth, to media/press person, social media, digital person. Yeah, I've got a reasonably sized team that I've been funding a bit out of pocket until I get the matching money.
Thank you.
Whitney, I want to thank you for your candor, for your the civic courage to step in and run to advance a reform agenda and for an independent perspective.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and I applaud. I know you guys, your organization's been doing this for what, 125 years. It's really important work, and I'm glad we had the chance to talk. Thanks for having me, and I'll look to amplify a lot of your good ideas.